Sunday, and we're back. It's Jan Hendrik Wessels. A bit of a update to the entire saga for Jan Hendrik Wessels, and not a great one either. I must be honest, because it just has totally confirmed everything that we thought. Is that yes, it is true that the citing officer and the judicial panel took Josh Murphy's word on the entire thing. No evidence, nothing extra, nothing. Jan Hendrik Wessels denied it. And this comes through an article from Planet Rugby, so we're going to go through that. And then Report also had some extra questions there. Maybe let's start with just Johan Ackerman, who was asked yesterday when we had our post-match sort of washout with him after the Glasgow game, just about the Jan Hendrik Wessels and how it impacted the team. So let's start with that, and then we'll go straight into the Planet Rugby article.
Yeah, Ken, first of all, the team was very good. They obviously support Jan and, felt sorry for him when that happened. And, Jan was around us yesterday at the field and there's sympathy for him with his situation. So, obviously we had to bring in Etienne and he had to adapt and learn and get used to everything quickly. So there was a little bit, but again, that's from day one, we said that's the kind of team we need. We can't let things influence us. We have to be adaptable and we have to, control the moment that's in front of us. No, there was no other footage that I was aware of, Ken, that brought a different view or a different. So whatever the what the facts was in the hearing, that was the facts that they made the decision on, and obviously. I'm not going to say too much because I think the appeal is in. So now we just wait for a date on the appeal.
There we have Johan Ackerman confirming that there was no new evidence introduced into the Jan Hendrik Wessels sort of hearing. And it's something that I said in a previous video, and some of you may have watched those previous videos will corroborate it. The one thing that did change is that late on Friday afternoon, after I made that video, the Bulls did suddenly get the disciplinary outcome, the judicial record, and they are now preparing the appeal. So I think the first thing to say before we get into the Planet Rugby article is a lot of questions there. What did Jan Hendrik say? Well, we're going to cover that now, what he said in the hearing. But the fact is he did not plead guilty. He did not admit it. He actually gave his version, and it's quite clear that the disciplinary committee accepted Josh Murphy's word over Jan Hendrik Wessels as the proof. And that's what's so gobsmacking about it. The precedent that this all sets is ridiculous. But okay, we'll get into that now. Just on that, it's just that they've got the disciplinary hearing. The Bulls are preparing an appeal. But this is already going to cost Jan Hendrik Wessels because the Springboks are getting together. They flew out on Friday to London, and obviously the other guys in Europe, the Stormers and the Bulls guys who are over there, would join up with them there. But the Boks have a thing that if you don't train on a Monday, you can't be considered. So Jan Hendrik Wessels won't have his appeal before Monday. So that means he can't be considered for the Japan game. So there's already a good couple of 100,000 rand that he's lost on the match fee if he was going to be selected. Of course, nobody knows they're going to be selected, but I'm sure he probably would have played some part in the team for this coming weekend. Okay, so let's get back into the Planet Rugby article. So I must give them credit for getting the disciplinary hearing. We haven't seen it yet. I'm getting it later today, and if anything does change, I will update this video. But for now, this is what we've got, and there's no reason to believe that is incorrect. I think what they probably stated here sounds very much like what happened. But let's go straight through it. They got all the details, and certainly it is horrific reading if you're a South African. So over here, the first paragraph is interesting because it basically confirms everything that was banned despite no conclusive video evidence, and that the disciplinary the panel reportedly handed down the punishment on the basis of testimonies by Josh Murphy and the citing commissioner. Now, the citing commissioner didn't see anything different than we did, but he just believed Murphy, and that's rather bizarre. This is where the crux comes, because if you go into a court of law, you have to prove evidence. Otherwise, you can't take something you can't prove into law. All lawyers know that. But here in this panel, on a balance of probabilities. Now, I'm not sure if this goes through to a proper law court, if this will even stand up. But anyway, the panel must be satisfied on the evidence put forward by the player on his behalf that it's more likely than not that the findings of the citing commissioner were wrong. So basically what they're saying is it's up to Jan Hendrik Wessels to convince the panel that what Josh Murphy said is incorrect, which is a bizarre way of looking at things. The first thing that the report shows is that Peter Ferguson, who's the citing commissioner, who I must remind you is also an Irishman and is appointed by the local union as the citing officer, spoke with Murphy after the match before submitting a report to the panel, where he in effect believed the account of the conduct flanker. Now, whether he believed it or not is irrelevant to me, but anyway. So the report, he said, the live television feed, while not conclusive in capturing direct contact, clearly shows Wessels' right elbow grounded and his head turned backwards towards Murphy. Simultaneously, the left arm, partially obscured, can be seen moving in an unnatural arc towards Murphy's groin area. The movement is not consistent with any legitimate racking, grasp or binding action. Immediately following the contact, Murphy reacts with visible and audible distress. He attempts to push or strike Wessels away and can be heard several times in the referee's microphone exclaiming, "He grabbed me right here," gesturing unmistakably towards his groin. Now this is quite interesting because, so he's taken the player's account and he's believed it. And he believes it because that's what his realm of, his bias, I'm trying to think of a better word for that, but what he believes. But the opposite can also be true. But he's now played judge, jury and executioner and found him guilty already. And that has carried weight. Now, whether I believe it or not, my verdict as a spectator, your verdict as watching this, probably counts the same as Peter Ferguson, who's an Irishman, who's going to believe the Irish player above the South African player. But be it as may, that's what his report said. And this is the part that's quite laughable for me, is his tone is one of shock, distress and disbelief, yet he remains articulate and composed in his protest. As if that's going to do anything with it. We're talking about evidence here. What your tone and what your etc. is, surely doesn't come into it. It's whether there's evidence of foul play or not. This is carrying on from the Planet Rugby article, and this is, if you're South African, you're going to find this bizarre, because anybody who's got anything to do with law just knows that opinions don't really count. It's the facts that matter. But he says here, he recounted the incident with clarity and consistency. When asked how long the contact lasted, he estimated 3 to 5 seconds, a time frame that aligns with the footage and his visible reaction. He further stated that his testicles were grabbed and twisted, a claim made with conviction and without embellishment. I mean, that's just, okay, let's just leave it at that. He said, I was present at the match, positioned approximately 20 meters from the incident. My direct line of sight corroborated the sequence of events. But, if the referee, 2 assistant referees and a television match official, who were a lot closer than the 20 meters than he was there, can't find anything, then, okay. So we must just take your word for it. Now, this is the crux of what he gets to, is basically that while there's no video evidence, the totality of evidence, Murphy's immediate reaction, his consistent, credible testimony. Who decides that it's credible, first of all? The unnatural movement of Wessels' arm and the corroborating live observation leads to a compelling conclusion. That conclusion can also be very wrong. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Your opinion and what you saw is not necessarily the truth. And unless there's compelling evidence, you can't play judge, jury, and executioner on a player's career just from that, just because of his reaction. They then say that Jan Hendrik Wessels was put under the spotlight, and him and his legal representatives needed to answer for the claims. Of course, it says here that the first things that they said was obviously trying to look at the inconsistencies. As Jan Hendrik Wessels claims that the match officials were in a superior position compared to the citing commissioner, and they were not able to identify the offence, including with the benefit of technology. I think that's a very strong argument to me. Equally, the Bulls front row and his team felt that Murphy was uncertain over the length of the incident. Okay, well, that's just technical now. And then they used the incidents involving Carl Sinclair, which you spoke with, and Audrey Smith, which were obviously dismissed for lack of evidence as sort of precedent. But now the panel decided precedent doesn't, and they've already made up their mind. But Wessels, this is where a lot of people are asking, what did Jan Hendrik Wessels say? Well, he says he claimed that he was trying to push Murphy away after feeling pressure on his knee. Now, having watched the video again, and I'll play the video here soon again as well, and you can have a look at it. Let's just go through this. He felt a force from his side, resulting in him lying inside his leg, trapped under the players of the ruck. The player described using his left arm to push down his leg to relieve pressure on his knee and free his leg. Now, I don't know. That sounds pretty like at least as decent an explanation as the citing commissioners. Say, for argument's sake, here's the footage again of exactly what transpired on Saturday, on Friday night. Here we see Murphy coming in. Nama grabs him around the neck. That's a penalty. The referee said that. They keep on grappling there. I know some people have suggested that Nama might have accidentally hit him between the legs. Maybe that's what happened, etc. But you can see nothing from that incident there. This is the replay that's going to show you a bit more. Although nothing compelling, this is where the citing commissioner says he saw everything happen and believed everything that Josh Murphy said. Now, I don't have an issue that Josh Murphy probably felt something happened like that. Well, the point is, there's no evidence, and it wasn't intentional. Or was it intentional? At the moment here, from this incident, you can't really see anything. There is grappling over there. Jan Hendrik Wessels, that falls on his leg, and you can see him trying to push himself away, and there he gets hit. That's real time. Check how quickly that happens. It's 2 to 3 seconds. So, to me, if you watch that again, and we'll play it again, then you could probably see that Jan Hendrik Wessels could be right in what he says. It certainly looks like he felt like somebody put on his leg and he was trying to pull away. That's at least as credible explanation to me, without any other evidence that as credible as Josh Murphy's reaction. And to suggest that the player purposely went and grabbed somebody between the legs, I'm not sure why anybody would do that in the first place, especially with all the technology they have nowadays, all the stuff as well. It's just ridiculous to me. So let's slow down this video. This is now at half speed. Murphy comes in and he's trying, Jan Hendrik Wessels there, he's obviously trying to get the ball, disrupt the ruck, etc. He's off his feet as well. He shouldn't really be there. He falls on Jan Hendrik's leg. Jan Hendrik turns around there. Does he grab him somewhere? Does he push him? Is it accidental? Is it really on purpose? I don't know. I think you'd have to be a hell of a good lawyer to prove in a court that was intentional. I think what they've done is they've decided they're going to believe the one player over the other, and I think in terms of the precedent they've now set, it is absolutely gobsmacking. Now any player can accuse any player of anything, and it'll just be believed by this standard. The thing to me that makes this whole thing ridiculous is that we've seen so many other incidents, and rugby is one of these things that has so many grey areas where so many things you can see a guy. We talk about slowing down things for head knocks and players coming into rucks and things like that, and where the impact was on the chest, the shoulder, the head, that sort of thing. So now we at this point where there doesn't have to be clear evidence. There just has to be an accusation. And the accusation has to be in the grey area, grey enough that both things could be true. And now, to me, whether you believe Jan Hendrik Wessels or you believe Richie Murphy, to me, it's an absolute gobsmacking thing to convict a guy and put him 9 weeks out of action for that, where there's no corroborating evidence, there's no video evidence. The referee, 2 assistant referees and a TMO couldn't find anything, but somehow, because the citing commissioner who's Irish and the player who's Irish spoke to each other afterwards, and they said, I believe you. Now that carries more weight than Jan Hendrik Wessels' explanation. Anyway, but let's carry on. And here comes some of those questions some of you were asking in the thing. Further to the questioning by the committee, so he was questioned, he denied that he grabbed his testicles for the purpose of freeing himself and relieving pressure on his knee. The player stated, based on his position, he accepted that it was possible for him to have touched the groin area, but that he did not. Asserted that he attempted to pull his. He did not. He asserted that he attempted to pull his leg free, then pressed down on his knee to relieve the pressure on it. Rugby is a dynamic game. These things happen in split seconds. It's very easy to when you're in a position like that to be like that and just try and really get yourself out of that position. I think that's a fair explanation. It says here, Murphy rejected the version of events with the report, stating that the flanker described feeling the player grab, squeeze and twist his testicles, noting it was consistent with a deliberate act and that it could only have been a deliberate action and not accidental. In conclusion, Wessels' representative invited the committee to reject the citing on the basis that there was not sufficient evidence. The evidence that is available is inconsistent. The player provided credible evidence which was not subjective and provided a probable version of events. The outcome was that after receiving all the evidence, they decided that the citing commissioner's complaint obviously carried more weight and that Wessels had committed an act of foul play. Absolutely gobsmacking. Now it comes to the finding. It says committed an act of foul play that he grabs and twists the testicles. Now there's something that decided he grabbed and twisted the testicles. Well, that must have happened extremely quickly, because if you see that video we showed in real time, that was a hell of a quick grab and twist. But anyway, it says, while not conclusive, the video evidence supports and shows movements which are consistent with the finding immediately before, during, and after the incident. I think a lawyer will have a field day with this. Whether it's going to really matter, unfortunately, these disciplinary hearings don't like to be second-guessed. Both players were seen as credible witnesses, but Wessels' oral evidence was brief in comparison to Murphy's, which is clear and detailed by the committee. So now, that's also bizarre that they even mentioned something like this. So that because Murphy spoke a long time and Wessels didn't, that makes him a more credible witness. Okay, well, I'm glad they say that. And they say the player's actions were not in error and this was not a fleeting contact. Given the direct and intentional nature of the player's action, the committee are satisfied that the foul play meets the threshold for a red card. The best part is that very last paragraph. The committee also considered that C6 had his own interest to serve in giving an exculpatory explanation for him striking the players. He's facing a disciplinary hearing for his red card. But notwithstanding this, the committee found his evidence to be credible. So they believed everything that Richie Murphy said. Every little thing. Even though he's also facing a red card, even though he could also be banned, and even though it's an obviously easy argument to make that he'll want to make himself look better and Jan Hendrik Wessels look bad so that he could get off his red card, which he did, which was also another aspect which is going to be brought up at the appeal hearing as well. Okay, so let's have a look at what the gist of this is. In summary, after reading all that, it comes down to precisely this. An incident happened, the referee, the TMO, two assistant referees could not see something, they were meters away from it. They found nothing. They found that the only thing they could judge on was Richie Murphy's punch to the back of the head, which is, anyway, according to World Rugby's laws, any punch to the head is a red card offence, and so they gave a red card offence there. But despite this, the citing commissioner, an Irishman, who spoke to the Irish player and chatted to him and believed his version of events, saying that he was sitting 20 meters away, 20 meters further than the referee, the assistant referees, and the TMO had video that she could look at. And he saw better, and because he saw that and it gelled with what he saw, it must be a guilty finding. Then the committee said, well, they brought both players in. Richie Murphy spoke for a long time. Obviously, he's under the threat of being banned for his red card as well, gave his evidence. And then Jan Hendrik Wessels obviously responded, probably on legal advice, just to the questions that were asked from him. He explained what happened, he answered their questions, and as the report states, because he gave a shorter answer than Richie Murphy's evidence is more compelling. For that reason, he won't play any rugby for the rest of the year, because the committee accepted an allegation which is unproven by any evidence other than his accusation. This can of worms that they've opened up now is going to be huge for rugby. If this stands on appeal, you're going to see a lot more players accusing other players. You're going to see a lot more stuff happening. URC is going to have a lot more disciplinaries to look at, and it just makes no sense by law. And if it is upheld on appeal, I can see Jan Hendrik Wessels pursuing a civil claim here, because as we'll get to it now, as reporters stated, he probably going to lose about 1.5 million rand, more or less, in match fees and other fees, which he would have made by going on the Springbok tour and his Bulls Champions League games, etc. And that is the probably going to be for him probably worthwhile. And there'll be a number of lawyers who'd want to take this case, I'm sure, because it's just so ludicrous and because the balance of probabilities is just bizarre. And the can of worms they've opened now will be a field day for lawyers and wouldn't stand up in court. So, on my opinion, anyway, I'm sure lawyers will say the same. But let's have a look at Report's article here as well, and just add to what they mentioned. Their report have it in their headline, Hendrik Cronje's article saying that's going to cost them 1.5 million. Interesting to note that the URC hasn't commented. They don't want to comment, and they won't comment till the appeal process is done. So rather frustrating for a lot of people as well, but the lawyers are certainly going to have a field day with this when they get into the appeal, and possibly afterwards as well. Translate this for people who don't understand Afrikaans just as well, because this is part of Report's article. It says they spoke to a lawyer about it, and he said that because there's no video evidence that could show that he's guilty of such an offence, that there's a strong chance that he will be exonerated before the test against Japan. He says, there's no video evidence of any such offence. It says it will be a scandal, a shame, if the appeal doesn't succeed. It will leave rugby as in an interesting position where players can be found guilty without any video evidence and just on the word of another player. That's what we've been saying the whole time. And then he adds this: I'm sure that the members of the disciplinary committee was never in a ruck and don't understand how dynamic the movement is in a ruck. And I think that anybody who's been in a ruck knows there's a lot of grey areas that happen, it could, both versions of this could be true. Actually, when I say both versions could be true, I don't mean that Jan Hendrik Wessels intentionally twisted and grabbed, and like they say. I mean that there could have been contact, but accidental. It says another thing the report brings up here, that the URC needs to explain why they didn't have another independent committee for Murphy's hearing. Why the same committee who heard this heard Murphy's hearing for the red card? Because there's obvious sort of assertion here that if they believed him on the one, they were always going to let him go on the other one, and a separate independent committee should have been appointed here. As the lawyer says to report here, what independence is there in Murphy's judicial hearing? All that they did is they changed the chairman of the committee. It was the same committee. Anyway, URC basically said to them that they do appear independent, etc., and they're not going to answer any questions now. It's all very dissatisfying, obviously. So that's where we're left at this moment. Jan Hendrik Wessels is banned for 9 weeks. If he can't train on Monday, he won't be selected for the Japan test. He might be exonerated before then because the hearing should happen this week, hopefully, if all goes well. But it's just absolutely gobsmacking. It's ludicrous. And I don't care if you from where you're from or what side of the fence in this you're sitting. Just the principle of accepting a player's word over no video evidence and convicting a player for 9 weeks until the end of the year, and giving him and basically leaving him with a reputation of being a dirty player that does stuff like this when he's denied it and where there's no video evidence to support it is absolutely ludicrous. If he did what he did, if there was video evidence, but to me the citing commissioner's report is a bit of a joke, because he spoke to the player afterwards and the player told him this, so he believed it. So now we must also believe it. To me, probably the truth in the matter is probably closer to Jan Hendrik Wessels' thing, that it wasn't intentional, that there might have been contact. But whether you can ban a guy on that I don't know. To me, I'm not a lawyer. What I've always been told is that lawyers know, and I learned this the hard way. I saw this quite in action in the Oscar Pistorius case, where there was a lot of stuff that wasn't presented in court because the lawyers said they couldn't corroborate it, they couldn't back it up. They knew it was probably true, but they couldn't put it up in court. Now, on the balance of probabilities, they've just decided that whatever Jan Hendrik Wessels said is nonsense. And I don't know, how do you get to this point? Anyway, but it's a can of worms they've opened. If this stands, then any player can accuse any player of anything, and it'll just be given a guilty plea, etc. As long as that player comes off and speaks to the citing commissioner or speaks to somebody who can give a report, and they believe him. Anyway, what a flippin' joke. Anyway, this has done rugby a lot of harm. The way this has been handled, the way it's been delayed, the way everything around this has just been totally ridiculous. And unfortunately, it gets smacks now of sounding like guys covering their own backsides to make sure that they, and forget about the player, forget about the reputational damage, that the disciplinary guys cover their own asses, so to speak. I think it's totally ridiculous. I totally disagree with it. I can see how Jan Hendrik Wessels' version could be accepted. I can see how, even if it's not, there's not video evidence. So I don't see how you come to that conclusion. Anyway, saying that, let me know what you think in the comments. I know this is a very long video, and thank you for watching all the way to here. If you have, this has really been a bit of a circus. And unfortunately, rugby is damaged by it. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. There'll be other videos as well. Chat soon. Cheers.